Welcome to this final session of the day in the Travel Forward Theatre. I'm Scott Armstrong, I'm the Editor-in-Chief of Arabian Business, and this is Will 2021 be a year of opportunity for travel startups? Now, there's some promising news out there, exciting news. I don't know if you read recently, but the Emirates Development Bank Strategy was launched recently, and that's an $8.2 billion strategy for startups and entrepreneurs in the UAE. Financing-wise, they want to create 13,500 new SMEs and startups, 25,000 jobs, and there is a $272 million investment fund for startups. So the question is 2021 a good time to start your own business, particularly in the travel industry? And I'm joined by three guests today who have their own stories to tell. My first guest is Anna Skiggin, the founder and CEO of Frank Porter, who is an Airbnb management company launched in Dubai. My next guest is Kevin Chock, who is the co-founder of Hotel Data Cloud, a B2B content distribution platform for hotels that applies AI and ML, machine learning, to generate personalized content and smart recommendations. And my last guest, Mamoon Hamedan, is the managing director for Middle East, North Africa, and India for WeGo, which began life in 2005 and has grown into a business with millions of users. So I'm going to start in the middle, Kevin, if I might, with you. Your startup was recently recognized by the UNWTO as a healing solution for tourism and selected as a winner of the Lee Prize for Entrepreneurship and Innovation in Travel and Hospitality. So I'm going to give you your 60-second elevator pitch. Tell us about Hotel Data Cloud and what's been key to your success.
Sure. So Hotel Data Cloud, as you mentioned, is a content distribution platform, B2B. So we help hotels on one side of the market and we help booking platforms, offline and online on the other side of our market, make sure that they have detailed information. So detailed pictures, multilingual descriptions, everything you want to know about a hotel when searching, selecting, and booking. And for hotels, this currently is a really manual process. They'll have to go to different extranets, they'll have to email this information to their suppliers, and that causes a lot of problems. It causes reputational losses, missed bookings, compensation costs. So we solve all of this. What makes us really unique is that we actually disrupt something without hurting anyone. We're not stepping on hotels' toes, we're actually boosting their revenue. We can increase direct bookings, but at the same time, we're helping them utilize their distribution network much, much more efficiently. And we've partnered with companies like WeGo, so it's actually quite cool to be on stage with one of our partners who we've signed in the middle of the pandemic. We started these conversations in May last year.
That's a lot of information in 60 seconds. I'll just stay with you a second. What has been the key thing that's helped you on your path as a startup? So we'll have people in the audience today who might be thinking of starting up their own business. So what's been the secret sauce?
I would say it's flexibility, agility, flexibility to react to situations that are entirely unexpected, like the pandemic, but like many other things that we encountered before this pandemic. And that, I think, prepared us as startups a lot better to cope with situations like this than a corporate that had stable revenue, no surprises, and used to do things the way they always did without having to react to anything.
Anna, it seems fair that I give you 60 seconds for your elevator pitch. Tell us a bit more about Frank Porter. You obviously launched in Dubai. How far along your startup journey are you? And do you indeed even consider yourself a startup still, or have you evolved beyond that?
So for sure, we've been set back a little bit by last year. So I wouldn't say we're a startup. I think we're quite established. We're over 80 employees now, and we're in Dubai and also in Russia as well. And what we do is we offer a full service for apartment owners. We take over the property, we fully furnish it, and put it out on different platforms like Airbnb, Booking.com, TripAdvisor, and the rest. And then we market it to guests. And then take bookings, check-in, check-out, cleaning, maintenance, so everything to do with the guest experience is what we do. We launched in 2017, and we were really on our way to grow much faster. And then when COVID hit, I think everybody is in the same position that you start to feel almost like you're back to being a startup because you have to figure things out from scratch almost. So it's been a really educational year. I think anybody that survived last year, I applaud them.
Absolutely. We see this at Arabian Business as well. I think anybody that's in business at the end of 2020, well done for getting through that. Mamoon, I'll come to you. I'm not sure you need 60 seconds to introduce WeGo, but from your perspective, WeGo began life in 2005, which was a relatively buoyant economy. What's your view of the landscape now? This is a very different landscape. Is 2021 a good time to actually start up a business?
I guess definitely yes, particularly across the region here. I think that in the travel space there was always kind of a challenge, right? When it comes to digital business, there was always like, okay, is it the year of digital? Are we moving digital? Is it going to be between offline, online? I think that's being cleared out throughout 2020. I think it's obvious today that digital is the way forward, and this part of the world is probably more ready than many other places to accept new businesses within the travel space. For us in WeGo, yeah, maybe we are an old startup now. It's been like 16 years, multi-countries. To be honest, we still like to be described as a startup, maybe a mature startup. We like to think as a startup. Every time we feel that we got something up to a critical mass and critical stage and we started making money, we invent something new within the company. And we all try to shift again and think as a startup once again. Yeah, and that's something we just did throughout the second half of last year when we launched 3 new products, which took us completely out of our comfort zone in a way. And we're trying now to build up upon that. So all focused in the region, and all we think that's going to be growing faster than anywhere else by making it available for users across the GCC, Middle East generally.
So you're still young at heart then at WeGo?
Sorry?
You're still young at heart then at WeGo?
Oh yeah.
There you go. So you definitely are as young as you feel. I don't know what that says about me. I'll just quick statement for the audience. If you want to ask questions of the panelists, we will have a Q&A later. We've got 2 microphones at the back that you can ask those questions from. And we've got 3 guys here with a lot of insight. So if you have got questions, get them ready. I wanted to come back. It's a question for all of you. And Mahmoud, you touched on it. Mahmoud, you touched on it there about technology. All 3 of your businesses, technology seems core at the very heart of your enterprises. For the startups in the room or the would-be startups, how important is that? Is that the central question about how you use technology to make your customers' life better? Mamoun, I'll start with you because you're already going there.
Well, I would say, developing an omni-channel sort of strategy and adopting it, applying it for your users, starting from social all the way into all the marketing tools that you can apply today, use the data segmentation at scale, reactivate those users, keep the combination going with them. That's one way of utilizing the latest technology available. I would say, product, focus on the product and make it as seamless, as easy, as convenient as possible. That's something we learned over the time. And it proves that always working. One of the things also, I think, common mistake many people have done is actually depending a lot on the robotic, automated machines. I think when it comes to customers, keep the human touch. That's very important. Adopt the technology, but keep that layer of a human personalized touch in place. That always would help the case.
Kevin, I'm going to come to you. I mean, AI, machine learning, is there still the human touch inside your business? And again, do you see businesses out there where you go, that's a really good idea, but the technology doesn't back it up?
Absolutely. So maybe quickly in my background, I used to be a venture capitalist before I started this business. So everything we looked at was heavily tech-focused, and that was kind of at the core of every business that we would invest in. In travel, we see that development as well, but much slower, at a slower pace, with almost hesitancy to adopt technologies that I would say are too innovative for the state of the industry currently. So with Hotel Data Cloud, when we talk about AI and machine learning, that's not really something that hotels get that excited about. That's more relevant for the other side of our market. With hotels, we have to be actually really careful, and I've seen this in many different travel startups, that we use technology in a way that the market can actually use it and adopt it. And you just mentioned two important keywords, ease and convenience. That doesn't just apply for consumers, but also for the B2B segments. You need a certain ease, you need a certain convenience of using a new technology. And that's where we are very careful that we still keep that human component. We still have direct conversations with the hotels that we work with, listen very closely to their demands, to their experiences out there in the market, see how we can help them, maybe even adopt other technology solutions that are complementary to what we do.
So for the audience, if there's a would-be startup sitting amongst us today, I'll say with you, Kevin, for now, if they've got a great idea, do they need to be part CEO and part CTO, or do they need to recognize I don't have these tech skills and go and find a CTO to make this ambition a reality?
I mean, I can take that, because to be honest, my tech skills are far behind from a lot of other entrepreneurs. I'll be very honest about that. I have my co-founder, Gregor, who understands tech, who can write some code. He's the guy who is in charge when it comes to the nitty-gritty of technology. What's important, though, as any founder, is that you have a technological vision and understanding of what kind of technology options are out there and how can they be applied to your product. That's something, if you have no understanding of that, if that's a foreign world to you, it's going to be really tough as an entrepreneur.
And Anna, I'll come to you. I mean, you're an online platform, so technology must play a massive part in the business. How have you used it to your advantage?
No, absolutely. You need to have technology for any startup. And for us, we had to build our own because there was nothing in the market that we could use that worked for our business. So everything from the owner's app, for example. So a property owner can log in and check how their property is doing in real time. For our maintenance, for our cleaners, for everything, we have technology. For our guests who are coming into the property, they can log in and check out the closest restaurants, I don't know, the closest attractions in Dubai. So technology is a tool that you absolutely need in order to grow, in order to scale. It's just impossible in today's world to grow a business without using technology. And whether that is using third parties or developing your own, and I think in many businesses you have to develop your own, to be able to compete and to be able to grow as fast as you want to grow. So for us, for sure, it's
great. I could just see Mahmoud nodding his head vigorously as you're talking there, Anna, as well. So while we're on that, third party versus develop your own tech. Mahmoud, I'll come to you on the far end first. What's your feeling of that? You went your own enterprise route, or did you start with a third party, then outgrow it, and then?
No, for us, it was always our own stuff, our own development team. So we got some help, definitely, but that's more on the tools, more on the attribution, more on the data capturing part of things, data management platforms we use, But anything to do with the tech, with the core of the business, no, we prefer to build it ourselves, and we invest heavily on that. And I think that's a key within the recipe of success, if you want to call it, as for any technology-based business, for sure.
Again, Kevin, you're nodding your head as well. You concur with that. Yep. Does that not come with some challenges though? Because obviously, you're going to make mistakes along the way. Is that part of the learning curve?
It's absolutely part. You make mistakes early and quickly. I think that's one of the secret recipes for success as a startup, that we don't invest tens of thousands of dollars in external consultants and then fail. We do something quick and dirty sometimes in the beginning, develop an internal MVP, and then if that fails, we don't burn as much as if a giant corporate has invested a team of 30 people for 6 months. So these failures are the way to a perfect product. And at its core, as you mentioned, I think it's incredibly important that you have a proprietary solution that you own, that you've built together with customers, with early adopters who've given feedback and insights into what they actually want from that product. But then that can be supplemented with third-party services. I'll just give you a very basic example. For our customer support, we work with a solution that has a chatbot integrated, a help center with an extensive library. If we had built all of that on our own, that would have taken us years. And there's great services like that out there that you can just plug in that really enhance your own product.
Anna, your thoughts?
think
Fail
it-
and fail fast, or?
Oh, for sure, but that's part of the startup journey. If you're not failing, you're doing something wrong. You know, you can't
I've been a
succeed at
startup all
every
my life,
step all the time. That's how you learn and you get better and grow as a company. So for sure, that's part of it. And just coming back on technology, I think it's just the world that we live in. I think you're right, travel is catching up slowly, but every industry that's set in their ways, it takes a while to adopt new technologies, new trends. But I think travel, you know, everything is online. You know, nobody's going to a ticket office. Everyone is booking online. You see reviews online. So, you know, we have to adapt to where the market is going.
Do you think coronavirus has accelerated that change?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yes, it's forced people to change. It's forced people to, you know, for every business to realize how important online is. There's companies that never offered online shopping, for example, that in the middle of COVID, everyone started offering online shopping. They realized no one's going to their stores.
I'm going to ask this question of all of you, so I'll stay with you first, Anna. But so, what was the lesson that you learned during COVID at Frank Porter? What was the one enhancement or reaction to coronavirus that you now go, actually, that's made our business better, and we're going to keep doing that after the pandemic finishes?
Well, for our business, you know, when the borders closed in Dubai, we thought this is it. We're going to have zero bookings.
Yeah.
We're not going to make any money. We're going to have to close the door. And surprisingly, what happened was our occupancy fell from about 80% to 50% because so many people got stuck in Dubai, and there was this transitional period of people needing an apartment for 2, 3, 4 months. People that didn't want to take long-term leases, people that were moving, coming. There was this whole group of people who weren't tourists that needed accommodation. And we realized that our business is quite good for any sort of situation. Everybody needs a place to stay for a couple of months. And during the pandemic as well, we've kind of, everybody at the time also wanted a big space. They didn't want a hotel room. They wanted 2, 3 bedrooms where they could work from home, where they could cook, where they could wash their laundry at home, you know, everything to do in the house. So we realized how essential our business has become during the pandemic. And it's made us better. It's made us more aware of the needs in the property as well.
So have you kind of expanded your business model? That's a segment of customers that you weren't looking at before that's now.
Yeah, absolutely. We've expanded. We didn't expand during the pandemic, but I would say we just realized that there was more than tourists who need short-term accommodation. And that was quite exciting because that means that we have more clients available to us than just tourists coming to Dubai.
Kevin, coming to you, I'm assuming you've got a good story here, having been described as a healing solution. What did you learn during COVID as a business that you will retain and keep doing afterwards?
So one thing we learned early on was that we have to be really quick, that circumstances change incredibly fast. I mean, it was within 2 or 3 weeks that the whole world went into a global lockdown, travel subsided, and we had to look at, okay, what's coming next? And all the scenarios that we saw in early 2020 turned out to be completely different eventually. And we had to really carefully listen to that. And the reason why we were selected and recognized as a healing solution was that kind of led by the UNWTO, but also a lot of hotels, we saw that trust was becoming more and more important. Trust in the safety measures that hotels were undertaking, trust in social distancing and proper cleaning protocols. And that was something where we could help hotels get that word across, spread that message to all the different channels that they work with and make sure that consumers know hotels are doing everything they can to increase that trust, to get people back traveling under these safe circumstances. And that quick reaction was crucial for us surviving 2020.
And that comes back to being flexible. Mamoon, again, from Ouigo's perspective, what did you learn during the pandemic? How did you improve? And also, for the startups in the room, or if there are people who are thinking about launching a business, is it important for, we've got 2 stories here of businesses that pivoted or were flexible or were agile and discovered something new. Is that an incredibly important mindset for a startup to have, to go, right, I thought I was doing one thing, but actually I'm taking a step back and there's another market there. There's another way here.
Yeah, absolutely. For us, being a B2C product and throughout the pandemic at the beginning, I think that the right thing we did, that we basically decided not to stop completely and not to go in silo. What we say, okay, we've got 26 million app users across the region. Those people trusted us over the time, used our product over the time. They came back and back and back. So we thought, okay, the right thing is to be informative and be helpful at this part of the time. We cannot keep on hard selling, giving discounts and ask them to come and shop flights and hotels, because that doesn't exist. But we better keep the communication flow going with them. And we adopted a full content strategy that got extended to social media. We started providing, I wouldn't say news, but more related updates on what's going on around the world and how things can make their life easier. From that, we could figure out an opportunity, to be honest, where we thought, okay, keep the traction happening with the product and add some relevant stuff while people are staying at home. We've always been known as a product people would pick up their phone and use when they want to go. And we thought, like, okay, let's provide them stuff that they can use and become useful for them while they are stuck at home. So we started building partnerships with partners and companies and products that not necessarily into the travel landscape, the likes of food ordering, the likes of online supermarkets, extra. And then we started seeing lots of traction coming to that, and that kind of became an opportunity for us, where we launched a completely new startup within the startup called Shop Cash, which is a cash rewards product, where we took good pile of that huge user base we have, and we sent them into a new product that we told them, okay, every transaction we're going to make online is going to be a reward contribution to your virtual wallet we created for you. Keep using that, add more money into your wallet, and come back to Wigo when the time allows, and use that money to buy your next trip. We're seeing a fantastic traction across the ecosystem. So I would say without the pandemic, without the crisis, we would never ever think of something like that. So I think, as they say, never let the good crisis go to waste. So I think it kind of.
You just stole my line. I was going to ask the same thing of you, Anna, about a crisis, not wasting a crisis. One thing I wanted to ask you: you're now 4 years into your startup journey. If you could go back in time, what would you tell yourself, your startup self?
Oh my God, so many things. I mean, if I would tell anything to myself, is don't be too hard on yourself. Don't expect everything to go right away. Expect to have these failures. Now I'm talking about these failures. At the time when things didn't work out, you take every hit personally. So don't take things personally, and just learn from everything that you're doing, which I did. But at the time, I think you become very harsh on yourself when things don't work out. And I would also say, don't try to do everything yourself. That's something that we did when we came. We really came here like a proper startup, almost working out of your garage startup. We worked out of our apartment. And sometimes that's very tough, especially in this region. I think you need more people to do other things. You really can't do everything yourself. That's what I would say to my younger self 4 years ago.
Kevin, are you too hard on yourself?
I would actually say that I was just thinking, all the mistakes we made helped us move forward and learn from that. The one thing I would do differently is start a year later, or even 2. I mean, now knowing that we have the pandemic, now is really the right time to be in this market. Now a lot of players who were very successful previously have woken up to the need to innovate, are more progressive, or approaching technology with a more progressive view. And that really kind of opens up that market for what we're doing. 2016, when we started, the travel industry was doing really well with its legacy systems, and there was no need for innovation. Innovation really wasn't embraced as it is today. So 21 is definitely the year for startups.
Now, I mean, I'm in awe of anyone that has the courage to start a business in any climate, to be honest with you. Arabian Business, we report on that all the time. And Kevin, I'll come to you. How do you take that leap of faith? How do you throw yourself off that cliff?
To be honest, I mean, I always felt like at heart I was always an entrepreneur. While I worked in venture capital, I loved that job. It was really cool to be on the sidelines of entrepreneurship, investing in startups, seeing innovation move forward, and capitalizing on that success. And I saw all these great ideas, and it always felt like someday I'll go back into the startup world. But it really took that tremendous problem around content that Gregor explained to me and opened my eyes up to feel that urge and see here's something that needs fixing. Here's something where we can actually help a market move forward in a better way, offer better products, work with successful established companies, work with startups or advanced startups like WeGo. That whole collaborative opportunity, that was something that triggered me.
Another question for you. I mean, you said there that you've always considered yourself to be an entrepreneur. For the travel startups in the room, are entrepreneurs born or can they be taught?
It's a good question because I don't have many entrepreneurs in my family, to be honest. My parents aren't entrepreneurs, so I don't really know how I discovered entrepreneurship, but I started my first business when I was 8 years old, I think, or something like that. Me and my best friend back in school, we offered like lawn mowing services, stuff like that. And at that time, I didn't even know I was an entrepreneur. I didn't know what that meant. It was just something, I saw that opportunity and we jumped on that. And I think we did that for a year and we made the local newspaper. And after that, I kind of forgot about entrepreneurship for quite some time and then sort of just stumbled back into it eventually. So I guess somewhere it was in my roots, but I don't know how I learned it actually.
Mamoon, I'll come to you, Mamoon. With your mentor hat on, and you've obviously been with WeGo for many years now, what are the important foundations that anyone who's going to launch a business needs to have in place?
I guess, research would be a key thing. Know a lot, as much as you can, about the market you think of, starting your business in. Find out where the opportunity is and what you can help with and provide. Number two, I would say product, once again, focus on solving a problem, provide people with something convenient. Don't worry much about the monetization part, that will come. Figure out a plan, of course, have that business plan in place, but build everything in the product side that you want to go to people and tell them, whether it's B2B or B2C, but then you need to have the right tools and the right working setup in place. And then, you start putting a price next to it, and then you're going to start scaling up. I mean, it's a good story from WeGo. I mean, I'm talking on behalf of the founders here. Yeah. So after they started the business, one coming from Yahoo, another one coming from ISG, they just realized that this is something happening in Europe and the US that called the meta search, and many of the companies around the world actually from that part of the world are working more and more with the meta search. It's time to bring it to Asia. They just realized that they were 5 years earlier than the market. So they went in, lots of airlines, but all low cost. They just figured out that actually low cost carriers don't pay commissions and they cannot afford to pay commissions. So that sort of surprises at that time just made them focus on expanding beyond Asia at that point of time, made them think of Middle East, made them think of India. And they started putting all the product, necessary product additions into that time. And then we had a ready product for the ready market, and instead of being too early, we became literally at the right time for the right market, and we benefited a lot from the first mover advantage in the GCC. So I would say focus on the product, focus on solving a problem, provide people with something convenient they will benefit from later on, and at one stage the money revenue part will definitely come in place.
I want to stay with the money. Kevin and Anna, you both, Anna, you're 4 years in, Kevin, you're 5 years in. There's the big idea. Where's the money come from to actually even start the business? How do startups, even travel startups in particular, access funding? Anna, tell me, you're perhaps the most recent, so how did you start your business?
We were self-funded, so us and family and friends, and we're still family and friends. We haven't sought outside help yet. That's a whole different ballgame. I think if you're starting out, that's the first place you have to start. If your family and friends don't believe in you, it's going to be very difficult to get to the next stage, you know? Or any kind of loans, you know, whatever money you can have. If you strongly believe in your idea, then you can sell it and get the money that you need, I think. I don't think money is the issue when you have the really strong idea.
Kevin, I'm sure you're itching to answer this question as a former venture capitalist. How did you start your business?
So we self-funded as well until 2020. In 2020, in April, in the middle of the pandemic,
would you have borrowed money off your former self?
Sorry?
Would you have borrowed money off your former self?
Yes, I would have. Yep. No, so 2020, we raised an investment from 5 business angels, 4 of them based here, 1 of them based in Singapore. Finding them was not easy, to be honest. And I would argue that finding money, I wish it was just come, but I've seen many ideas die. Typically in that Series A stage, so after the seed stage where they've established traction, but somehow it's just not enough for that Series A bigger investment. And then there's that valley of death where a lot of startups just die, even though, yeah, they actually have a decent product, but just can't grow on their own power and don't have enough funding to go beyond that or to be acquired.
Well, where do the guys go? I mean, if you've got people in the audience today who've got really good ideas and you think, right, yeah, and the family and friends can only fund so much, where can guys go to actually get the money to get these businesses off the ground?
I mean, it's still Silicon Valley, and I think Silicon Valley is looking more closely at the Middle East. That helps us, definitely.
Okay.
I do think that the pandemic actually has helped VCs think more globally. Because if I'm honest, like my fund that I worked for was based close to Munich. Most of our startups were in Berlin. How often was I actually at the startup office in Berlin? I mean, honestly, hardly ever. For board meetings, yes, but other than that, everything was done remotely. So we could have invested anywhere. One big thing, of course, is understanding the local market if it's a startup that operates locally. But if it's a travel startup, most of us are inherently global. You said you're in Russia, you're in the Middle East. I mean, why not get money from Europe for a startup that is expanding globally, or the Silicon Valley?
Unpack that a little bit for me as well. Like, how do you base that on? You're saying Silicon Valley is increasingly interested in the Middle East and this region. I mean, that's got to excite these guys here. Where are you seeing that?
Well, I think it'll cause excitement, yes, once you're mature enough to attract those big checks. And that's where it's a bit complicated here. The smaller checks in the seed stage, and the seed stage now stretches far beyond what it was when I was in VC. Like typically, anything above €1 million will be a Series A investment. Nowadays, just today we saw an announcement of a pre-seed funding of $5.5 million. Finding those checks is really hard. You've got to have those connections, a track record, maybe with Kareem or some other startups to get that early check, or bootstrap, self-fund to get to a stage where you can suddenly attract interest for bigger checks at a Series A stage. And that's, I think, what makes founding a startup, particularly in an industry that requires a lot of inside knowledge, like the travel industry, makes it tricky at that early stage.
I'm going to stay with this just for one last minute because I think this feels really useful for anyone who is starting a business. You're talking about bootstrapping. What were the biggest mistakes you made? Where did you waste the money that you shouldn't have? And again, Anna, I'll come to you on that one.
Where did we waste the money? I wouldn't say you waste a little money on everything that you do. You hire the wrong people, you make the wrong marketing decisions, but we kind of did everything very cheaply in the beginning because it's your own money. I find that a lot of my friends and people that I know that have gotten outside funding too early kind of felt, awash with cash and just spending it on whatever. When it's your own money, you start to think very hard about how you're going to spend it. So a lot of those things in the beginning, the cost of our office, all these little things that we kind of went cheap on, I'm so happy we did, because when the pandemic hit, we didn't have all of these huge costs that we had to cover. So we were actually quite smart in the beginning because it was our own money.
Kevin, similar for you? What did you splash the cash on that you shouldn't have?
We spent cash. I'll give you an example. We spent cash in the early days when we had just gone live and wanted to bring hotels onto the platform with a freemium strategy. We used the call center. We had 5 agents in the Philippines calling up hotels and telling them about what we do. And we pulled the plug on that after, I think it was 3.5, 4 weeks, when we realized what we're doing requires too much time to explain to make that a viable acquisition channel. So I'm glad we tested that because we needed that learning. But I'm also glad we didn't have more funding, maybe a Series A prematurely poured into the company and poured into the wrong channels to acquire customers.
Mamin, I want to talk about the travel industry in general and the opportunity in 2021. What industry verticals or segments are you seeing successful business startups coming from? And are they still, a rich seam to be mined? Where is the opportunity?
Well, I think the opportunity today is still in accommodation in a way. Alternative accommodation was I think a couple of years ago and is still there. I think more providers to come into the mix. I would say post the pandemic, because of unfortunately many of the players have gone out of the business. It's maybe a chance for new startups to come into the mix. There are lots of travel experts, people with experience are out there in the market as well, ready to work, ready to join a new adventure, a new startup. So that's another opportunity. When it comes to the region in particular, I think this part of the world is one of the fastest, I would say, to figure out a way to deal with the pandemic to an extent. Vaccinations at scale. The biggest market in the region, Saudi Arabia, is in a huge transformation at the moment, going into much more tourism, much more openness, focus on leisure. That's the biggest opportunity, I think, worldwide for anybody to consider. So that's an area. I was having a chat with some of the Saudi tourism people a couple of days ago in the ATM here, and yeah, even the religious travel has different plans altogether at the moment now. So that's another huge opportunity that maybe nobody thought of tapping into before, because it was kind of static, timed, happens once a year. There are certain players. So when you think about it, there are plenty of opportunities happening at the moment in the travel space across this part of the world. So I think it's attractive, and yeah, I would say just do the proper research, figure it out, and it's out there for many people to start capturing.
Kevin, other than your own business, of course, what was the last thing you saw you went, that's brilliant, I wish I'd thought of that, or I actually still would go and do it? Where's that opportunity?
I wouldn't say it's one company, one product in particular, but what we're seeing with a lot of companies that we work with and their distribution partners is that we have a trend towards booking channels that really understand their customer. These can be specialized companies that focus, for example, on halal travelers. These can be regionally focused OTAs. There's a big trend toward them picking up on where we were before the pandemic because they're very close to their customer. You mentioned some examples of how you've been educating customers about things outside of your core product, and that's something that will definitely be rewarded in the long run, and that some of the local players are nailing a lot better than the global OTAs have been.
Same question to you, Anna. What was the last thing you went, yeah, that's a really good idea?
I'm not sure about specific ideas. I just saw a lot of innovation over 2020 in different industries. Just of people realizing so much is moving online, a lot of technology that's developed in 2020 about how to target new consumers. For me, I'm really interested in the Middle East, in this region, because it's still developing, but it's developing at such a high pace, at such an accelerated pace. You're talking about Saudi. It's such a great example of a country that's, even in my 4 years here, has grown exponentially, and the opportunities are not specific to a market, but specific to a group of people, of products, services, opportunities that you can deliver to that market. And it's a huge market, the Middle East. So there's so many interesting things going on that I think people are beginning to tap into. And when I see those stories of those companies trying something new, it's really impressive to me.
I'll stay with you, Anna. I mean, I've been at Arabian travel market now the past 2-3 days, and you even now, late in the afternoon, you can still hear the buzz of conversation. It feels like we're at the edge of something big. It feels like the rest of 2021 there's promise in 2021. How are you seeing the market? Are you seeing it pick up? Are you seeing it within your customers and your business? If I'm a startup listening to this, should I be hopeful?
I mean, absolutely. 2020 has closed the world, right? And everyone has this pent-up demand, pent-up frustration that we want to travel, we want to meet people, we want to socialize, we want to go to restaurants, we want to live our life as we used to live it. Maybe, of course, it's going to change in some ways, but this thirst for travel that we've always had is now double. So we see it with our guests. As soon as the market opened last summer, end of last summer, we saw huge acceleration in bookings. So anybody that could travel was in Dubai. As you know, UK was a great example. Everybody from the UK was in Dubai. Then that channel closed. Then we have other people coming in. Yeah. So you have a lot of people that are just, they didn't take their summer vacation. They didn't take their winter vacation. And now they're just waiting. I mean, just waiting for the next opening, so they're booking. And we're seeing these bookings. We have bookings already for next year. So from October all the way up to February, we have bookings because people just can't wait to travel. So for sure in this industry and in many industries, you're going to see this demand, I think, much higher than we even expect. We're thinking it's going to go back to normal. I don't think so. I think it's going to go beyond what it used to be, of all these people that couldn't do it, and now they really want to do it, so it's going to increase and accelerate the travel.
I mean, that's interesting, Kevin. I love the term revenge tourism. People that have just been denied a holiday, that they're going to take one. Does that mean then that, particularly for anyone who's thinking about startup, they really should be getting excited and getting their plans, like now is the time to do this?
Get excited, definitely, but be ready for it to change, maybe be delayed, maybe have different markets than you might have originally expected, be the ones who drive your business towards its growth. I think keeping your options open is what's really important right now. And we will see an increase of travel. I'm confident about that. It might be domestic tourism for a while still. I spoke about this recently in the news about the Eid weekend and the amazing occupancy rates that we saw with staycations here in the UAE. And that's something that actually the government of the UAE has put very high on its agenda to double the number of domestic tourism in the coming years, way beyond the pandemic. So those are opportunities to capitalize on. Business travel will definitely come back. I'm confident of that, maybe differently than before. With people working remotely, you might have more quarterly meetings at headquarters that people travel to, things like that. But I do think we'll see a surge in business travel, maybe not as soon as tourism, but definitely over the coming years as well.
Mamoon, at WeGo, you'll be seeing this like you're literally at the coalface of this, in coalface of bookings and that kind of thing. So what are you seeing ahead for Q3, Q4?
Well, I think every time we get some good news, generally, we see a direct impact. January 2021 was a good month. I was considered, of course, knowing what was happening before. Then February there was some restrictions coming from Saudi, so that brought things down a little bit. Once things got ease again, we're seeing attraction. Now Saudi is opening up. We started to see an uplift straight away. To Kevin's point, staycation became a real thing. Became a business to consider and to look after and to cater for more. I think hotels are enjoying it in Dubai, even around the ATM, everybody's talking about it. I think we're going to have a slow Q3 with a small recovery, but we will have a very well boosted Q4. That's my view from what we're seeing today. We're not seeing a huge surge. We're seeing people searching, planning, putting their plans together, considering what they need to do, but they're waiting to have the momentum and the sentiment kind of building up around them as well. They want to see others traveled, came back, told them, yeah, it's fine, it's easy. They want a certain protocol in place as well. And until today, every country has set its own way for people to get in and out. I think with the vaccination being a scale, everybody's expecting a little bit of, a generalized or centralized sort of approach towards that. I think that's going to happen potentially by end of Q3. So we all combined together, high number of vaccinated people, a little bit of better, clear protocol in place, plus that have sort of sentiment building up. Hopefully, I think Q4 is going to be the faster way towards whatever we used to see pre-COVID.
I mean, you both talked about staycations there, and we had the world's coolest winter last year, and it was the success story for the tourism industry of 2020, particularly in some Emirates like Ras Al Khaimah, who absolutely smashed it. Are there enough startups pointed at the staycation? Anna, do you have enough competition?
Sorry, what was the question?
Are there enough startups pointed at the staycation sector?
At staycations?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think we haven't even, nobody expected COVID to happen. You have great examples of RAK and Fujairah, so many places that you can go to in the UAE, for example, that were betting on normal tourism. Tourism, I think, went down by 70-something% last year, and all of a sudden it started to fill up by domestic tourism. I mean, I speak for myself. There's places I discovered in the UAE. I've been here for 4 years. I've never seen before last year. And I think we're going to see, and I think it's fantastic that Dubai is not going to be the only city, only tourist destination. I think we're going to have a lot of companies pop up in all these different Emirates, and really provide opportunity in different cities of the UAE. So we don't have that much competition, but I think we will.
Kevin, let's talk about the startup scene here in the UAE. I mean, we've got the Emirates Development Bank Strategy, $8 billion now pointed at the startup scene. Do you think the landscape is it fertile ground for startups now in the UAE?
Compared to what I've seen in 2016 when we moved here originally, or 2017, there's been tremendous progress. And with what's been promised with the new fund that you mentioned from the Mohammed bin Rashid Innovation Fund, if that all comes to play in the next years, we'll have a really good ecosystem that is prepared for success stories, very comparable to Silicon Valley. There is competition in the region. We see a lot of movement in Saudi as well. Offering attractive financing to startups, good acceleration programs. But I think that can work together, that can be in partnership. These markets, the MENA region, can be a really good breeding ground for global success stories.
One last question to each of you before I throw it open to the audience to pick your brains. And that is, give me the most important lesson for a startup and the one thing that's exciting you in 2021. So, if you could give them one lesson, Anna, as a startup, what is it?
The one lesson, I would say just the hard work, the willingness to put work into it, not to give up, and to believe in your vision. So if you have belief in your vision, you're able to deal with so many things going wrong. And I think that ability to fall and get up is the most important thing for anybody starting a business, not to give up, to persevere, even despite other people maybe telling you it's not working, or something like COVID happening and people saying, I've had people tell me travel's over, no one's going to be traveling again. You should close the door, So I think that's the most important. And for 2021, I think, we see it. We see this potential, and we all want it to come back. And we're all tired of sitting at home and, of 2020. So I think there's a lot of excitement and things turning around. We see it with vaccines. We see it in a lot of countries taking the correct decisions. So I think, for me personally, I think it's very exciting to be going into the end of this year. Just turn a new page and, go forward.
You remind me of the Winston Churchill quote, which was, I think he defined, success is the ability to lurch from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm. Kevin,
absolutely.
What's the big lesson for startups that you could share?
I'll actually join in on that message. I've always liked the saying, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And I think we've seen this, especially in the pandemic. I'll say that hotels really have done a tremendous job marketing themselves really well, pivoting to the domestic market, which was a very small niche until now, looking at long-term stays, all of that, and just kind of making the best out of a terrible situation. And startups can learn from these. Actually, hotels are not startups. They're not very innovative typically, but they've done well. And this is something that travel startups, I think, can learn from. I think we'll see more setbacks. With all the excitement that we have right now, there are going to be regular setbacks, and that's something I think we just need to kind of get used to, and most of us probably have. Be prepared for the setbacks, work around them, find ways to see kind of the light at the end of the tunnel, even if something sets you back way more than you would have ever anticipated. Because as an entrepreneur, that is definitely going to happen. The unexpected will happen for sure. But rejections are going to come in, but don't let any of that deter you. Look for the truth in that, and then try and work with that. That'll keep you going towards success even through tough times.
I'm inspired. Mamoon, your lesson for our audience.
I would say invest in the team, build the right team. That's super important for a startup, whether a team of one person or 2 or 3, regardless. But choose them right, make them part of the story. By all means, make them part of the story, and then they will work hand in hand, as hard as you would think of, and take your business second level. I think that's the key thing. Another thing that, from our experience as well, startups should talk to each other. Go meet with them, talk to them, even if they're from different industry. There are lots of notes to swap. There are lots of learnings. There are lots of mutual grounding that you can find, and probably an opportunity that you would consider in the future. Now, towards your question about 2021, as Anna mentioned, that everything looks exciting at the moment. From our point of view, I think the world is not going to go back offline at any time. It's going to go more digital, more online. So I think we are in the right business. I think any startup who think that way at the moment would be definitely taking a part in the right space, I would say. So we look forward, fingers crossed, that we get a better ending of 2021 and a better 2022.
So now comes the awkward part where I ask people to put their hands up. We've got a few minutes left before the close of the session. You've all sat there patiently listening. Thank you for being part of the session. Does anyone have a question for any of our panelists? If you're thinking of starting a business, any advice you'd like to seek from them?
First of all, I would like to thank all of you for sharing your experiences, as these are very vital for us, and these are parts of your life where we can learn. It's like reading an autobiography of a person where I can fix my mistakes in the future. And this is what I would like to ask each of you. So what is one mistake that you did that you would say that you would have done it this way? Like, what would you advise me to take care of? Whether it's maybe people relations, or maybe people might, backstab you, or money related. What would you advise me to give importance to from now?
It's so difficult. You can't protect yourself from everything. It's so difficult to protect yourself from people that can backstab you. It's so difficult to protect yourself from future situations. I would say have good partners. That's the most important. From the beginning, surround yourself with the team that you trust. People that you trust, people that are competent. But that small team, the founder team, this core team, you have to be so sure of the people that you're working with. We hear so many stories of you starting a great idea and then something happens, partners fall apart, someone does something. So I think from the beginning, to get that right, to have the right people from the start, you're not going to have all of them right, but at least the core. To really invest and make sure you're going into business with the right people. For me, that's very, very important. That can make or break a business.
Kevin.
Absolutely. I mean, I've experienced this from the perspective of an investor and as a founder, that I'm hiring the right people, but more importantly, founding the business with the right people who have each other's back, where you have trust, where you know they're not going to run and take the next corporate job when the going does get tough. That is absolutely crucial. And we've almost made a mistake. We got lucky, I have to say. Lucky in the way that we lost funding that we almost secured because we had the wrong co-founder in our team initially. Before we incorporated, before all of that, so we made that mistake super, super early. And I mean, who knows if it was maybe a blessing that we didn't get that funding in the early days, because we might have spent it wrongly. Always hard to judge afterwards retroactively without knowing what else would have factored in. But that wake-up call that the one co-founder was not the right person, that was super important. And luckily, I was rewarded with the perfect co-founder who was originally the third part, and yeah, now we're a team of two, but the perfect combination of founders. That's something that I feel truly blessed for, and that is the most important part of everything we've ever done.
Mamoon, any words of wisdom for a young entrepreneur?
I think the more, I would say, the more you can avoid fundraising at the beginning or a seed fund, and you can do the business you believe, the idea you believe in yourself, the better. Get it up to a kind of a maturity level where you think that, okay, it is something you can protect very well, and you can have people to share the same vision with you and put some money in and become a partner or a shareholder. Yeah, the more mature business you have, the better and stronger presence within the business you would have in the future. If you go very early and you ask for money, you're basically giving away a big part of your dream straight away to somebody else. And in many cases, and I'm sure my colleagues here have seen it before, in many cases, you will feel that sort of, that backdrop somehow.
And actually add something to that, you just kind of inspired me a bit. One other lesson I would share is definitely be careful about counting your chickens before they hatch. A pandemic might ruin everything, or other reasons that you just can't foresee. That can happen when it comes to funding, where you might have a signed term sheet and then suddenly you don't get the investment, or a second tranche of investment is delayed. There's so many things that happen to even the best startups that you need to be prepared for. So really be careful, plan conservatively, even though that goes against everything you should do as a startup. You should be ambitious, you should scale as quick as you possibly can, but also be a bit conservative and make sure that surprises don't backstab you suddenly and kill your business.
Thank you, Kevin. Anyone else? Any more questions before we round up session?
Yeah, hello, my name is Gabriel Hébert. I am the co-founder and general manager of a company called Arabian Breeze. We are offering trips on sailing boats operating from Abu Dhabi. My partner and I, we started the business in November 2019, and unfortunately 2020 we were hit by the pandemic. So we were not allowed to operate the boat to take our clients to the islands and mangroves and the lagoons of Abu Dhabi. And we are now shutting down the business, unfortunately. I think one of the mistakes we've done was marketing. I would like to know how you started when you're not known at all. How do you start to get yourself known and really develop your client base?
I mean, that's a fantastic question, isn't it? Because you can have the business, but if no one actually hears of you, you can die on the vine. Again, Anna, I'm going to come to you. I can see Kevin beaming as well. He really wants to answer. Go on, Kevin. You take it first. Go on.
With a lot of patience. It takes so much patience to build up your brand. I mean, especially in B2B, because you can't use the typical social media channels, viral marketing things. B2B, you just need a lot of patience. And I remember actually my decision to start HEC was at Arabian Travel Market as a visitor back in 2015. 2017, I was here when we launched the product on the market. Back then, nobody knew us. Nobody knew us as founders because we just moved freshly here. Yeah. Nobody knew our brand, and gradually that changed. And it was actually always at ATM where we, a year later, would see, oh, suddenly people recognize the name. Suddenly people have heard from us from other hotels or other clients who work with us. And then that patience paid off, but it's really hard to measure along the way, and just something you need to consistently work on.
I mean, it's an interesting question, isn't it, Anna, as well? And it's a difficult decision for business as well. Where do they park that marketing budget? Is it taking, an expensive line item, which is maybe a standard exhibition? Is it social? Is it Google? Where do you park your marketing cash?
It's a difficult one for everyone because, especially as a startup, you don't have that much money to spend anyway. So you have to be very smart about where you're spending your marketing. It's difficult to say exactly where, but of course, social, online, targeting so to go back, you have to figure out who your target client is. Who is the person that wants your product? Where is that person going to find your product if they're looking for that product? For our business, if I want to do anything, I go on Google, right? I'm the generation of Google. Everything I want, what is the best restaurant, Thai restaurant in Dubai, I put it into Google. So if you go from that perspective, I know, for example, that Google is my search engine. I will put majority of my money into my SEO and to my ads to making sure that the people that are looking for my business can easily find it. So I target it towards my customer, but that's my business. Other businesses, maybe it's trade shows, maybe it's meeting other businesses in your industry. I think you have to start with who you're trying to target and work from there, and where that person would go to find a business similar to yours, and spend the money there. I think it's a mistake to just do, ads wherever without having sort of a target in mind. That's where you can spend a lot of money and lose a lot of money. And I'm sure everyone's done it. But yeah.
I can hear my commercial director in my head screaming at me going, tell them to advertise in ArabianBusiness.com, Scott. Any other questions?
And also advertise on ArabianBusiness.com.
Okay, great. Well, I'd like to say thank you to Anna, to Kevin, and to Mamoon. I think at 4:30 on a Wednesday afternoon, they deserve a round of applause for their insights. I think they've been great. I'd also like to say thank you to you guys. Last session of the day, 3:30. You've been really attentive, and thank you so much for joining us today. So it's been a real pleasure having you. I will leave you with the inspiring words of the former President George Bush, who said, "The problem with the French is they have no word for entrepreneur." Have a great afternoon. I hope you've enjoyed the show, and have a great evening. Thank you.